So maybe your mother not still or whatever. But that is it's a dreadful thing to have that in your head. So then you can become free of that by realizing these are the thoughts, and here's the actual situation. I lost the train of thought, by the way. We're talking about separation. So separation of life is I am. That's how you do it. Separation and life through that. And you can, when you go into nature, really, we can talk about this of knowing. You can know. I like walking in nature in the forest, and I can do it in two ways. I can walk through the forest and look at the trees and birds and the ferns and all the wonderful things. Let's comment on it. This is that. Let's call that. Or use this wonderful person. What it's called. So and so on. And all kinds of commentary. There's one way of knowing the forest, but I can also walk through the forest and simply be absolutely present and observe without labeling it. In that sense, from a conceptual point of view, I don't know anything anymore. But basically, unknowing there, I can suddenly sense something that the conceptual mind can never feel. And that is the forest is alive. There's an energy field there. There is even a sacredness there. And everything is intensely alive. And I become still. And that daily sense of merging with that which you are observing with the sense perceptions. And so the sense of separation goes away. And there is a sense of oneness with that which you are perceiving. There's no longer the me and the other, because that's true conceptualization. And that's beautiful when you can walk in the forest like that. The experience of being in the forest is greatly enhanced. And if you can relate with another human being like that, then it's a true relating. And here we come to compassion. I would say that true compassion with another human being, which is closely related to the ability to empathize, to feel the beingness of the other, to sense your way into the other, is also closely related to what we could call goodwill towards another being, benevolence. Confucius already pointed to benevolence as one of the most important things. He says, you're not even fully human if the faculty of benevolence, which is goodwill, or the facets of the same faculty, has not arisen in you. Confucius, you're not even fully human yet. So that compassion, the benevolence, the goodwill, the ability to empathize, to ultimately recognize the other as not absolutely other, all arises when the habitual and unconscious and compulsive labeling of others no longer operates, and that's where compassion can arise. Before we came out, we were actually talking about barriers to be compassionate or connected to others, and we're actually talking about how wonderful it is to have an animal like a dog, because they never judge you, right? And that's really what we all want. Yes, because that's one of our fears is that when we intersect with another, we're going to be judged, and you have this animal that hesitantly embraces you, and in fact, we're also not enlightened people, or people who are wonderful to be around, not that they're dogs, but they're, but what they do is, when you're with these people, you have this incredible sense that they just accept you for who you are, with no judgment, no demands. You're just there at that moment. I think that's the Joker is a wonderful example. People talk about the GPS. See, the GPS doesn't judge you either, does it? Never raises its voice. This is right. The GPS never tells you, why do you not listen to me? Why? How many times have I told you to sound this way? So I'm writing a book, dogs and GPS. And the dog, of course, I don't know if you've heard the prayer, please God, make me into the person my dog thinks I am. Now the dog, of course, the dog doesn't think. It just experiences you. It has no labels to us. It doesn't have the conceptual reality. It has a direct reality. So that is enormous joy of life in the dog, as expressed in the tail, the wagging tail, which is, and this is why many human beings love relating to animals, because they think this unconditional acceptance, as you look at the life in the dog, and you can sense the dog's being as unobstructed by mental stuff. That's pure being. And by looking into the eyes of the dog and feeling the dog's being, actually you can sense your own being, as you feel, oh, it feels so good to look into the dog's eyes. And so the dog, I would say, this is what I call it, the dog is pre-thought, so it hasn't lost him or herself. I don't like to call the dog this. The dog hasn't lost him or herself in the mental realm yet. And when we go beyond that, like you mentioned, like people who don't have this ego self anymore, they have lost in common with the dog, but they have risen above thinking, and the dog is still below thinking. But both are more deeply connected with that being. We humans in our present evolutionary stage are halfway between the way the evolutionary terms. We are halfway between the animal and something greater than the human. And that's one of the things that we're talking about is one of the challenges for us, which creates this self-talk, is the fact that we have a perception of the past with regret and a fear of uncertainty by understanding the future. And so we have evolved from the animal, as you will, who's right there at the absolute moment and who experiences the joy and the connection and this incredible sense of happiness just for being right there. Yet we have evolved to such an incredible state where we're either back there or looking over there, but we're not here. And I think that's how that's an enormous frustration that we actually, most humans seem to look as if past and future are much more important than the present moment. And usually it's the case when you are up to a certain age, future is much more important than when there's not that much future left anymore. The past becomes much more important. You can all see that when you're older, with your grandfathers or parents, when they start to talk about the older they get, the more they talk about the past. Whereas you, also you're young, probably tend to think more in terms of the next moment, the next and the next. So not realizing that we actually, to a large extent, ignore, do not truly value, don't fully acknowledge, are not fully aligned with internally this moment, which is that it is a revolutionary statement to say there is only ever the present moment. That's all you ever have. Not the future, and not the past. You can never experience anything in the future. In that sense, the future will never come. It only comes into the present. There's only ever this moment. And if habitually you live in You have an antagonistic relationship with the present moment, as many people have, and that's due to this continuous stream of thinking, taking out of the present moment, believing I need to get there because the fulfillment of my life is there, but never here. If that becomes a pattern, even if you achieve what you want, if the pattern is deeply lost in your mind, that I'm going to fulfill in the next moment or one after that, that will probably remain even when you achieve something. For a moment, you'll be happy and fulfilled. Then the old pattern will re-emerge from you. I'm not happy today. This happened to me shortly before, this David Conscious happened to me. I was in London, and my finals came. I studied very hard. I was already a mature student because I left school at 14, and then I got a job in the late teens and early 20s, and then I got the qualifications to get university, taking courses, and then I was very fearful that I wouldn't do well, and I had to prove to the world and myself that I could do it, and so I worked very hard, but I was very unhappy while I was doing it most of the time, and when I got the best in England, it's called a master class honours degree, which not many people get, so cost elated, but I got, wow, my life is now, this is the absolute climax of my life, and it lasted for 2 weeks. And then suddenly one night I woke up again in a state of fear. What's going to happen to me now? What's going to happen? The old pattern restarted itself, and that was shortly before the shift happened. I was even more happy after that. So, well, it's interesting because I think one of the things that happen is we grow up and are acculturated, I think that's the word, acculturated, to certain patterns of thinking, certain self-criticisms. It's like a confused childhood because that's in the environment, and there's this natural tendency, I think, that maybe common is where when you're scared or fearful, you fall back on that because that's allowed you, I think, to survive to that point. You create this construct that you think protects you from harm, but in fact, it is the thing that is harming you. Yes. So talking about past and future and excessive emphasis on past and future in your life, yes, of course, you need to have, there's nothing wrong with having this intention of what you want to achieve, 6 steps towards it. It's part of living here in this dimension. You can't just say, I'm never going to plan anything anymore, just take life as it comes. Well, some people try to do that, but they're not that happy either after a while. So then your life will get very diffused, and so to have an intention, to make a plan, perfectly fine. What other short-term plan, like I'm going to meet you tomorrow at 4 o'clock, how would you ever meet anybody within that time? As future at a practical level, of course it's needed. The question is whether future takes over your mind. Being able to use it for practical practice is of course great, but I call it clock time is fine, but psychological time is when future takes over your mind and your entire thought patterns and ideas only towards future, and you treat the present moment as either just a means to an end because it enables you to get to the next one. You're always racing past, so to speak, in some ways to the next, you're never quite here, always looking for some fulfillment there, so you can never embrace the fullness of now, or you make it now into even an enemy. Some people are always unhappy, you all know some, 1 or 2 people like that, 3. Wherever they are, they're complaining, it's never quite right. Wherever they are, or whoever they are with, after a little while, they're very uncomfortable again, there should be somewhere else. You know the bumper sticker that you see in some cars, various versions of it, says, I'd rather be golfing, but then another one says, I'd rather be fishing, I'd rather be this, I'd rather whatever it is, the spiritual teacher around us. Listen to my he is a bumper sticker on that's what the school in the 70s wrote the book, Be Here Now. And then he had a bumper sticker on the start, it says, I'd rather be here now. So, and then you realize you can still pursue whatever an intention where you want to get to a plan. I call it, it's a bit like a journey. Your life is a journey. You know you want to go from here to there. Whether you're going to get there, we don't know. Maybe on the way you branch out to somewhere else. But at least you have a certain direction. It's good to have some direction in your life. But while you are traveling, if your destination takes up most of your attention and you're continuously focusing on that, you miss all the journey really. You can't enjoy the journey anymore. And most of your life is the journey. The arriving is relatively rare. The wedding, and the funeral, graduation, so those moments are not the 5 you need. So it's a journey. And if you can't enjoy the journey, which means the step you're taking at this moment is really the most important thing. Yes, of course you know you're going that way, but the step is still to be enjoyed. Because that's ultimately your whole life consists of the step you're taking at this moment. There's never anything else. Maybe I can mention Ram Dass, that you may know that he had a devastating stroke that appeared in his speech. What's interesting is here's that literal again, but that's not a timeline spectrum. But he said before he had the stroke, he never really thought clearly something along those lines, because it caused him to get insights into what not only did he lose, but also some of the fact that he wasn't there, and now he's very aware of being present. This gets back to an earlier conversation, which is we see people who spend an amount of time on introspection, yet this issue of ego still is a very heavy burden they have. Maybe, well, they see people have their own practice that they meditate twice a day and so on for years. They still very often seem to be an inability to integrate these practices into their everyday lives. So you can become a very good meditator, and I've met quite a few that they're fantastic. They can sit still much longer than I can, and they can sit quite still for 1 or 2 hours in a lotus position, which I would be able to, and they go. And the example that someone gives is a man who's doing his meditation on metta meditation is a meditation on loving kindness, which is spreading good. May everybody here in this house be well and happy. May I be well and happy. May everybody in the city be well and happy. So you spread out this is how everybody should be well and happy. This is the loving kindness meditation, title loving meditation. When the man doing his metta loving kindness meditation, the door opens, this 7-year-old daughter comes in and says, Daddy. Can't you leave me alone? Come here and do my loving kindness meditation. That's a typical example of not having integrated your spiritual practice into everyday life. And so this is why I recommend mini meditations during the day, just a few seconds at a time, when you actually become present. So for example, I recommend certain activities that you do habitually, why not, instead of using those activities as a means to an end, give them your fullest attention so that they become an end in themselves. For example, washing your hands. you can actually be amazed when you give people a sense of how pleasant it is to wash your hands. There's the feel of the water, very pleasant. But if that's the sense of the soul, there's the feeling of touch. As you may also wash your face after you always wash your hands, you cool water on your face after you wash your hands, and then you dry your hands. It is a very pleasant, it's enjoyable experience. Or walking up the stairs, if there's a stairs somewhere where you work or study or at home, every time you walk up the stairs, why not, instead of making it a means to an end, because you want to get to the top of the stairs, so just be aware of every step and just enjoy the movement of the disco, very, very pleasant. Waiting, I recommend that whenever you're waiting for something, instead of waiting, use that opportunity to use it as a mini meditation. So instead of waiting basically means you want the next moment, but not this one. That's why you're waiting. Otherwise you would be waiting, you wouldn't be there. So when you're waiting for the elevator, when you're waiting, there's something pushing inside you that wants to get ahead to the next moment, but it can't get there because the elevator is here. And so when you push for the elevator, instead of waiting, why not just be there totally without straining away from the now internally, want to get to the elevator, just here. Just use that moment and just pulling. Maybe take a few breaths. Take a deep attention to your breath. It's a wonderful way of taking attention away from thinking when you don't want it and don't need it. The Buddha already recommended breath meditation. You simply need to observe and feel yourself breathing. As you will notice, you cannot think and feel yourself breathing. It's either one or the other. So when you're standing in front of the elevator, take your attention away from the mind. Into the present moment. Take a few conscious breaths and enjoy this moment of not waiting. For the supermarket checkout counter, which is also frustration for many people, the words were already inquired. Yes, there could be an escape into some kind of this mostly lies in there. So these are mini meditations. I think they're very helpful. Probably I would prefer, I believe, these are more effective to incorporate many such mini meditations into your everyday life than to have totally separate compartments in your life. One is your spiritual practice and then there's the rest of your life. I'm not saying the mini meditation means you cannot also have the spiritual practice, but if you want to choose either one or the other, I would prefer the mini meditations because they become part of your everyday life, so you're less likely to have two compartments in your life. You know, you were talking about compassion practice. One of the challenges for many people, and one of the confounds in the neuroscience research is this issue of in-group versus out-group. And we understand from an evolutionary level why this has occurred, but I think to survive as a species, we have to figure out ways to expand this in-group, and maybe you can comment on what your thoughts are on how we do that, what you mean by it. The people who you have your group that you automatically feel close to or love, yes, versus people you've never met or that you have no opinion about, or in fact, that even dislike, is how you spread compassion, care, is love, to embrace them, and then how you embrace that, because your response oftentimes is an emotional response. Yes, that's a very important point. The one sense of self, in our Western world, most people have a predominantly personal sense of self, derived from their life experiences and also conditioning. Prior to a personal sense of self, humans apparently had a tribal sense of self. So the sense of identity was not so much based on me, it was mainly based on us. So they began with the tribe, it's our tribe. And when the dreadful thing one could do to a person, and still has sophisticated sounds in older societies, for somebody to be expelled from the tribe would be like a death sentence, not just physically, but even psychologically, the person would virtually die. So tribal consciousness is still very much alive in humans, and this is in some societies, and in the 20th century, in certain time periods, the 20th century was very strongly, very pronounced as nationalism, which led to the huge world wars and the madness of the 20th century. So there was really a regression to the tribal consciousness, which if you think that the egoic consciousness is totally identified with the sense of the me, the conceptual me in the head, if you think that's mass, the thing that's more mass is the collective consciousness, the collective me. So it is still the case that many people can have compassion and empathy with those who belong to their group, tribal group. Some people can only have compassion and empathy with members of their family or extended family. They just cannot go beyond that. Anybody who's beyond the family is the stranger. So you cannot recognize another as a true human being. And you still have within countries, you have certain regions that are totally have this tribal consciousness. And then you have the tribal consciousness in religions. They're very strongly still. Potentially religion is a wonderful thing. And the origin of religion, of course, is usually there was somebody who has a deep insight into the oneness of all life, has attempted to teach that to others, the compassion, the love, to recognize it in other as yourself. And yes, unfortunately, mostly the beautiful original teaching was hijacked by the egoic mind and used for its own purposes. And now we have, as a result, to a large extent, although not completely, there are pockets in religion that are deeply spiritual, but many religions are a divisive force in our world rather than something that unites us. That even within the same religion, people kill each other because it's another search for another belief. So don't quite share our beliefs. They believe that this thing happened and they believe that thing happened 600 years ago, and they don't believe that, so they must be evil. This happens when you conceptualize other human beings in your head. First you conceptualize your tribal identity, us, that you have some characteristics. Then you have to strengthen your tribal identity by having others who do not share that. The ego itself loves its enemies. By the way, the personal sense of self loves its problems. So the egoic self defines itself more clearly by having the non-believers, for example, in the case of religious infidels, or satanic beings out there. Or some people think the whole of America is satanic. There are millions of people have the real idea in their head that America is satanic. If they ever mention America, they would completely, all they would see when they get American, there was a stream of conceptualization of satanic, and they wouldn't see at all. They cannot differentiate between the saintly figure who is American and the brutal murderer who is American. He's just American. This would just be a street It's incredible what the mind can do to you, how it can totally obscure your perception of reality. And sometimes some Americans, they do the same towards others. If you could believe that you have an idea that all Muslims are awful, they're just out to kill us. And then, if you truly have that idea in your head, whenever you meet somebody that's like a Muslim, you would not see the human being anymore, but only a concept. You would relate to the other through this dense screen of concepts. In other words, total separation. And when you do that to another human being, it's very easy to perpetrate acts of violence because you cannot sense their inherent aliveness anymore, because you have dehumanize them. They become, the word is objectified, because they become mental objects. And this is what happens when you are too identified with thoughts. They cannot step out of thoughts. This is an enormous danger about being too identified with thoughts. So they have these collective entities, which are really extremely nasty entities. So there's this disposition, this pain body, where you need to separate that up. Because, the issue is how do you stand this, how do you get away from that? Is it turning off this inner voice, not listening to it, putting it aside? Is that the key? Stepping out of complete identification with thinking remains the key. So that your reality is no longer only conceptual reality, and you can then sense the meet another human being in that sense of clear presence without imposing immediately judgments on him or her. That brings us, suddenly there's something flowing between you. Suddenly it feels good to relate to another without all those obstructions. And this is where we have to go. Otherwise we will destroy ourselves. If more and more humans are able to awaken now, I believe that, I know that there are still pockets of it that are very deeply possessed, I would almost say, by the tribal consciousness, and those are the places that you hear most of when you listen to the news, unfortunately. As we covered a fair amount of topics, many of you have heard Descartes and other philosophers, religious and spiritual leaders. What many of you may not appreciate is he likes movies. And one of the movies, which I know you talked about, is Groundhog Day. There's actually some great enlightenment from that movie, and maybe well, if you haven't seen it, you must see it. Groundhog Day. I've seen it maybe 6 or 7 times, and I'm sure I've seen it a few more times. Just to refresh your memory, if you have seen it, just then explain why I love it so much. What the very important message is. There's this man, the protagonist, the actor is Bill Murray. So his character is a weather forecaster, and so he is so very, very negative. He dislikes most people. He dislikes his job. Wherever he goes, he complains and he's unhappy. And that is his sense of identity. That is how he is. So he travels to this place in Pennsylvania somewhere, and the Pascal, yes. And so they have this ceremony. They release the Groundhog Day TV because that is his place, because he's supposed to forecast how long the business will last. So he's the weatherman, so he goes there with his team of men, his woman, his cameraman, and his assistant, just to feel that he's so unhappy and negative. His life is an awful place. He never gets never care. It's one dreadful place to be. He mustn't jump. These are his thoughts. They're not the reality. They're his thoughts, but that's his reality. And then, of course, he wakes up. After they jump the building, they're supposed to go home. He wakes up. Everything's okay. And they can't get out of town because it's snowstorm and everything. Another night, he just jumps this awful place. The next morning, he wakes up and says the same thing happens to him the previous day. And then he begins to realize that he's reliving the last day. And he said very good. And then the film goes on. In other words, he's forced to relive this same day. He can never get out of town because of the snowstorm. Every morning he starts on the radio, the alarm radio goes on, and sings this song by Sia. I got you, babe. I got you, babe. And so it goes on, and we don't know how many times he has to relive that, hundreds of times. We don't see it. After a while he gets so desperate, he wants to try to commit suicide, and he does. But the next morning he wakes up again in bed. So, and then at some point in the movie his behavior changes. He, instead of being nasty to people, he helps people. So he becomes a helpful force. And he goes on and makes people's lives better. I think he got so bored with suffering and disliking it. So and every day he begins to enjoy more, because every day he just new things to help the people. And of course those people is always just the worst time it happens. And he begins to actually enjoy it. He cooperates with the present moment, as I put it. It's never explained in the movie, fortunately, because in good movies the message is not explained. It has to be shown, not explained. So the viewer can draw their own conclusions. And then the last scene is he wakes up and it's the next day. He can leave. Does he know he loves it so much? He says to his sister, let's see. So he is released from the cycle of suffering. As he begins to surrender and accept the present moment and becomes a positive force in the present moment, he's suddenly released from the cycle of suffering. And so that is the deeper message. That's the way and so basically, I would say, everybody who is still totally identified with their conditioned mind lives his or her own Groundhog Day, because it's not exactly, but the conditioned mind tends to replicate itself, and if you're totally identified with the conditioning of your mind, which includes reaction patterns and so on, you tend to recreate similar life experiences through your reactions, and you tend to need to recreate in the relationships. Some of you might have noticed that tend to attract certain kinds of people. How do you put it? That seems very strange, but it happens. And that's because so basically, everybody has his or her Groundhog Day in the head until they transcend it. And it's wonderful you said that, because this is a metaphor for the power of compassion, because look what happened in his life. He was self-absorbed, everything was miserable, it wasn't good enough for him. And this is an inward placement of his worldview. It was only until he looked outward and embraced others and recognized their suffering and the power of intersecting with them and trying to relieve their suffering that he was finally released from his own suffering. Yes. And on that note, I think we'll end our dialogue, but we do have some time for some questions, unless of course we divide everyone into more questions, but it's possible to have the microphone for either side. I'm young, I'm restless, and I'm optimistic that I can change the future for the better. But I also hear that you say you should focus on the present. And while you talk about Groundhog Day, we're going to be focusing on the So then, how do you bring about innovation and change? There's a thing on this. I briefly mentioned it is important to have a destination, to have an intention, to know what it is you want to achieve in this world, how you want to improve the world, how you want to contribute to the world. It's a wonderful and necessary thing. So the question is whether your intentions and your projects, your plans, as you begin to implement them, do they contribute to your happiness or do they generate stress? So while you are trying to make the world into a better place, you make yourself and others unhappy in the meantime. You are not aligned with the present moment. So it is perfectly possible and really the only sane way to live, not only to have a plan and to contribute to the world, but to realize the quality is highly important. It's not only what you do, the quality of doing, the consciousness that flows into what you do is even more important. In other words, how you do what you do is more important than what you do. You could have a store serving customers for this or that, which perhaps would not be regarded as a very important job, and yet if that is done with the quality of presence, where every customer comes into your store, you can give this person just an example, your fullest attention, you appreciate him or her as a human being, you see how you can best serve him or her in the present moment. That is quality, and then you will be improving. Then when he comes into contact with you, will somehow experience this whole lifting in their being and consciousness, and so that you will create even a person with a relatively simple job will contribute in that way to creating a better world. And if you have a huge project, this is wonderful, of course, but I would suggest or recommend that you are careful, that you give your fullest attention to whatever step you're taking in the present moment towards your goal, because the step is as important as the goal. In fact, the quality of the steps determines the goal. So the means never justifies the ends. The means and ends go together. You cannot have bad means to achieve a good end. It may look like that, but give your fullest attention to the doing, so you can be fully aligned with it, so that you don't generate negative energy because you want to create a better world. So that you create positive energy as you are about to create a better world. So if you balance the fullest attention to the number and yet knowing very well what it is that you want to achieve, then also the element of creativity, you can access that much more fully when eternally you open yourself to the present moment and you honor the aliveness of the present moment. You get far more insight into what you need to do, what's needed, and this may sound a little bit, I hope not so new agey, but when you are aligned with the present moment, you sense your when you are this positive, you tend to attract helpful factors into your experience at many times in your life. You know where you want to go, you make your commitments, you begin to take action, joyful action, alive, intense energy may arise, but not stress, joyful action, and then helpful factors are much more likely to come in than somebody who may have good intentions, but there's more stress about them. So I can shout at people around me because I don't want to do the way they do things, but we want to create a compassionate society. Why have you helped Bishop doing that? You know our goal is to create a compassionate society here. Okay, so it's a balance, and it's a practice also. I wish you well in your endeavor, and may your life be fruitful, and may your present moment be joyful. It is. Thank you.
Thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom with us. I guess my question for you is, how do you decipher what thoughts make sense to follow, the thoughts that are from clarity and beingness, and how do you choose when to think and when not to follow the mind?
Yes, thanks. For certain things, of course, thoughts are needed to deal with certain practical matters, so there's no problem there. What do you apply your thoughts? What you need here? Then there are thoughts that arise in daily life. They just come into your head, and you can notice how this particular thought makes you feel, so you can detect the feeling quality behind the thought. And if the feeling quality is not good, it's a bit like eating something that doesn't make you feel good once it reaches the stomach. It feels, oh. And so there are many thoughts of that kind that give you that feeling that is not pleasant. For example, thoughts that generate anxiety, thoughts about what's going to happen, or imagining problems that might arise tomorrow. And believing, firstly, that this is a reality already. And this is called worry, is a particular mind pattern that many people are familiar with. Worry means to think things that could go wrong and how they could go wrong, and how they probably will go wrong because they always go wrong. So that's a very familiar thing. And then you detect what does it make you feel, or it doesn't feel, what do you feel? Anxiety that arises, you feel a concentration in the body. So when the feeling will often tell you what kind of thought it is, whether it's true or not. And then you can recognize certain thoughts as not productive, and as thoughts that you would choose not to have if you had a choice. But the wonderful thing is that you do have a choice. Then it is actually possible to drop certain thoughts when you recognize it as having no function whatsoever except to make you unhappy. There is a wide range of thoughts that have no function whatsoever except to make you unhappy. Then sometimes the ego itself actually will even this unhappiness because it's so familiar. So every therapist is familiar with clients who do not want to let go of their neurosis because they feel at home with it. So but if you recognize these thoughts as not helpful, then it's easier to don't follow them where they want to take you. And by choice, remember what we said about attention, you actually realize you can choose where you want your attention to go. The thoughts pretend to be all powerful and you can try to get all your attention. No, my choice is not to continue this train of thought, but to take my attention into my breathing. Oh, much nicer. A minute ago I was terribly worried and now I actually feel alive. And it's quite pleasant to be here in this moment. It's not a hell, I just went I was in hell. And I was only in bed.
Good evening and thank you for tonight. One of my favorite jokes was that parents give advice to their children because they cannot be an example. So how do we help our children be present and separate themselves from their thoughts that we are teaching them to think?
Yes, well, you already answered your question because predominantly it's not by telling them, but by living it yourself, because that transmits itself out of the way in which the parents live is the greatest teaching for the children, as you rightly said. What they tell them is very much secondary, and sometimes it contradicts the way they live. The parents tell the child, don't swear like that, and the child says, but you do it all the time. So if the parents live consciously and bring more presence to life, that is the teaching. Occasionally they may say a word or two to point in that direction, but basically the answer is already, you've already given the answer. Yeah. to read here. So also when he talks about how he reached point and talks about the fact that effort was necessary but not sufficient, some point was an obstacle. There's also lots of effort, it happens. Yeah, so what triggered your awareness stage of apart from happiness? In terms of the book you read, how was your day look like? It was purely triggered by suffering. So I didn't like spiritual efforts to reach any kind of state. It was purely, what also said, of course, in some cases also applies. People who have a spiritual practice and put a lot of effort into their spiritual practice. While they put the effort into the spiritual practice, this is very much exemplified in the life of the Buddha, who had a spiritual practice for quite a number of years, that he had several teachers. He became extremely good at every spiritual practice, and he became an ascetic monk, and he stopped the only days and drank an absolute minimum. He almost starved himself to death, and so he had a very strenuous spiritual practice, and suddenly he saw this does not lead to awakening, and then he dropped, as you said, he dropped all effort, and at that point the story goes that when all the disciples left him, because he's abandoned the true path. Of course, he dropped all effort, and then was able to simply enter the present moment fully. Now, the question might arise, couldn't he have done that without the effort and just into the present moment directly? I don't know. In his case, he needed the effort, and in my case, I needed the suffering. So what was in his case the effort? In my case, was the suffering, which is also an effort. To make yourself suffer is a great effort.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being here. So I really enjoyed today. I feel like you talked about sort of a pragmatic wearing of this school of thought philosophy, which really resonates with me. I'm sure a lot of us in here. Sometimes where I struggle is when I take it to, I'm going to put myself in the extremes of the situation, and that is the complete dissociation from my ego or from collective ego. And this arises as something we're going to do with clients I work with too, where you are not your thoughts. And that seems to make a lot of resistance on the negative side of the spectrum. I feel like 90% is about big sabotage and destroy ourselves. But on the positive side of the spectrum as well, it takes a little more ambiguous for me. I think more ambiguous in terms of what I desire. Well, my girlfriend's a ribbon, she can probably attest that I've become the world's best gift receiver. Because I feel a sense of sort of neutrality. I call them joy, but I'm not ecstatic. Or like, I thought, like, this is awesome. The exuberance, and I'm not my thoughts. I just, well, they made it this is nice. I think you can get a good boy. Yeah. Maybe that's the answer. But anyways, on the positive side of things, I sometimes wonder if I really want to dissociate myself from the volatility of happiness and exaltation.
Well, on the one hand, you have the kind of what is conventionally called happiness, is when something that is considered great happens, and you go, wow, yeah, wow. Or that sometimes people, as the slightest thing, people are giving some object, and they wow, and they really feel ecstatically the happiness that is connected with something so-called good happening around something given to you, or you're saying something, and then there is something deeper, that is the sense of, I wouldn't call it happiness, or in some spiritual traditions it is called happiness. There's something that's actually deeper than happiness. There's a peaceful sense of life, sense of joy, the background of your being. And I'm a bit like you too, by the way. But I don't know if that is in the background of your being. But I don't go, wow, when things happen, or I say something here, that's quite pretty, it's nice. But if it's the next moment, will be okay too. So there is something deeper, that is what we call happiness. Because if you're happy one day, you may be unhappy the next. Happy, unhappy. Something bad happens, I'm unhappy, completely unhappy. Something good happens, I'm absurdly happy, unrealistically happy, because it's not going to last. So there is a deeper sense of joyful beingness, peaceful aliveness. It's less in the background, and therefore you're no longer ecstatic when something so-called good happens, and perhaps no longer that despondent when something so-called negative is also the case. When something is taken away from you, or something so-called bad happens, are you also not as despondent as you might have been in the past?
Yeah, I think so. I feel healed.
Yes. Now let's not confuse that. So, because some people confuse it in the sense of being like having deadened yourself to the highs and lows. This is not what we're talking about. And I have met people who have done that, and they don't feel more alive than you're less alive. And they feel less alive, but they when something good or bad happens, they go, well, they kind of deaden themselves to or repressing your emotions will be part of that. Eventually transcends the emotional highs and lows, because there's a deeper level in you where the highs and lows are not that important anymore. You still experience that to some extent, but they don't pull you down completely, they don't pull you out of yourself completely. So I don't believe you accept yourself, you seem quite alive, so the girlfriend can stick with it. I think that we use the term equanimity, right, where you don't get lost in trying to hold on to the highs, because they're always transient, and you don't get lost in attached to the lows, and you're right now. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to say we are out of time. I thank all of you so much for being here. Eckhart, thank you so much for coming. One of the most fun things I get to do is to interact at a like this, what are called conversations on compassion, where I get to invite people in the arts and the sciences, the areas of spirituality, religion, and I just have conversations. And not only is that wonderfully enlightening for me to some degree, but I think it's really beneficial for so many people, because it gives them, if you will, an understanding of what is beyond science perhaps, or how these other behaviors that they will embark upon positively impact not only themselves, but the greater world around them. And for those of you who know, like many do, Sadhguru has throughout his life
incorporated these values, and especially the value of service to others. And then he has found hundreds of thousands, if not millions, have found how his teachings, his example, has had a profound impact on who they are or what they have become, and for so many of those around the world. So for our conversation today, and one of the things I'm also interested in is for individuals, what is it in their background that began them ultimately on their path? And if I could ask you, I think you grew up in Weisler, and in fact, your father was a physician. Yes, he was. Well, that's me. The interesting thing, as I understand it, is that you always had an interest in nature and, if you will, being outside, and then you met your own guru at age 11, and maybe you can tell us about sort of perhaps what was different about you compared to your three other older siblings, and this interaction at such a young age with somebody that I think that you can impact on your life. I'll just start by someone. I was finished that, I was 19 years of age, I was so tense down, I barely spoke. Look at the age of 3 or 4 years of age, I suddenly realized I did not want anything. I did not want anything at all. So I don't know what to say. Well, I've been paying attention to all kinds of things you said. Thinking it was much like you said, staring into our house, and I was just staring at the whole night. When I was I didn't know what the textbook. I'm finding one something you felt on the page. That's what kept me engaged when I was a kid. How can I go to the textbook? But when I was young, without friends in the woods, I just and then with the other hand, just the time about kept me so engaged. So, if you will, look at it now. In the nation of hunting and leaders, I know what it is. With all the scientific inspiration, we still don't know what's in the past in its entirety. We know there's a compound to it. I don't know how to build it, how to break it, how to use it. I don't know what it is. Yes, I know what it is. I don't know what it is. I don't know whatever it is. Because it's the universe, is what I know. So, when I asked me to the question, when I talk about my life, I was going for one day, but I was never really able. Because what happened? When I was doing 4 months of it, I still remember. But never besides that. So I never was time. No, I know all. I know well. He was thinking about something. But when I was last year, I was thinking about the same way. I only did not get it in perspective. I don't know if talks had not been anyway. But of course, it's just not the same. So somewhere, I know all the time, there's not the same time in some ways. But I'm having some family, my mother, I'm really sure almost every person I can read about. But I'm saying my daddy's rich. And no one would ever cover me in front of me, take me like that. So it's not happening. And I don't ever think that. So I think I can go up for it, and I will test. You can't tell us though about the initial meeting or the interaction with your own guru who taught you. He was not my guru. He was something that didn't work on Guru. Along with the topic of religion. So he kind of reminded me of something I was super skeptic about everything. And I thought it was so wrong. I was not going to pursue the coaching process or some of the high pursuit. This was just a very much a good easy to roll around. I would take to a smoker, but it's just that anyone rolling it. For the boys one of the sport in the backyard, they have a well. It's about 8 feet down, 100 feet depth. Some are sitting in the water, some are 60 feet down. So one of the sport is some people up and climb up. When I started to jump from work, otherwise you're going to be still alone. You can come up with no control, have no better or anything, just hold on and climb up. And it's down. You come up with like monkeys. When you come up. One day, we were doing this. So then I went to take this over. And a man with a 70 years of age was standing there watching us without a word. He wasn't jumping well. I thought he's done. But he came faster than me. I was like, so I asked him how. He said, "How are you looking?" I told him they're lovely. And that was just simple things. I thought this would be music. Super. And I went in. So I spoke with him, yes, when I was in the broke his hand with me. And I never ever imagined that this leads to another direction of life altogether. So what I'm trying to say is, the nature of this is just such the wrong way to make the right thing in best result. I think one of the things is the right thing. So I should go well. I don't always do what I want. So if anything else, you ended up going to university and studying English literature. What university? You got first of all, when I finished my high school, I decided not to pursue my degree further. So it requires COVID, and I got a big lectures in India those times. This is always getting influenced with suicide. It's sure. Because everybody's looking to become a doctor. You can't get the magazine in the right hand. This is what I can say. So
So I thought of the physician. Obviously, I'm supposed to become a physician. No question about that. So at the age of level 16, when I was in high school, I said, I'm not going to finish. I want to rate myself. So that's a busy. From this one, I just went to my university library and spent time reading all kinds of things. From Homer to Thomas More, all kinds of things. Philosophy is about looking at nature, words, things over the just about anything, everything. There's no problem talking, look at that time to really important. I was super physically active. I was 10 times more active. 10 always has something to tell me how many.